What's the most shocking thing you've ever caught somebody doing? Probably NSFW. I saw a friend I had made at summer camp get hit by lightning. Mothurfka survived after CPR from the staff there and has a badass scar going from his shoulder to his feet. Edit. Story time. We were getting back to the cabins after coming out of the lake swimming because the weather was getting nasty. As we got our stuff and were walking back, we heard the loudest sound boom ever. Still remember it to this day. I still have a phobia of lightning, thunder, and a white flash. We saw it hit a huge tree next to us and we all bolted to the cabin as fast as possible. The staff did the head count and my camp buddy Jonathan was missing. The head staff girl ran out to look for him. Sure enough, he was lying on the ground next to the tree which was missing a few branches and smoldering. Girl brings him back to the cabin. Does CPR. etc etc. Most of us were still literally in shock, crying. I was mainly frozen in fear and amazement at the same time. I would pick up a female friend from someone else's house near mine. I thought she was buying weed or something like that. I don't smoke, so I just assumed she was hiding it from me to be respectful. One time I told her, you don't have to be so secretive. I don't care what you're doing in there. Well, turns out the guy that lived there actually had a foot fetish and paid her to come over. He smelled her feet while laying on the floor and jacking off. Sometimes he also asked her to kick him in the face, leave her sneakers there, etc. TL. DR. My friend was a foot prostitute. Edit. No. I don't know how much money she got. And no. We are no longer friends. She refused to pay me back for money I loaned to her for her to go to a concert. Then she stopped talking to me. Catching a guy masturbating to a children's potty training book at the toy store. I went to a friend's house for a sleepover and in the middle of the night I went to take a piss. But I walked into his parents' bedroom just in time for the money shot facial. They didn't even notice me for like a solid 5-10 seconds. It's hard to look at your friend's mom once you've seen her smearing cum all over her face. Edit. I honestly had no idea what was happening at first. I was pretty young when this happened. So I was kinda dumbfounded and just stood there with a puzzled look on my face. What happened when you were noticed? Edit. The consensus is that he joined in and it was hot weird. Masturbating on the BART train. We were the only two people in the train. And he looked at me and went back to his wanking. I walked to the next car fast as possible. First year in college. Walked in on my roommate naked in bed, stroking his cock while reading Ender's Game. I slowly backed out and closed the door and we never talked about it ever. I'm not even sure if he noticed me, but ever since I have wondered, what possible scene from that entire book could he have found fab-worthy? Barely Bonzo, Madrid and Ender in the shower. I work in a supermarket in the UK and we had a mentally challenged guy working for us. One day in October last year, a customer came up yelling about the retardee with a trolley. After a quick hunt we found him midway down the main aisle with his cock out, furiously masturbating and licking his lips. He only stopped when our security guy threw a towel over him and dragged into the offices. We're going to need a cleanup in aisle 3. Last week I was riding the bus. Saw a homeless woman with her arm inside her sweater mumbling to herself. When she got off the bus she stretched her arm that was in the sweater and I could see a tit hanging down to her belly button. She proceeded to rub her nipples while getting off the bus. This guy in my multimedia class openly masturbating to anthropomorphic animal PRN on the computer. The whole class watched in horror and moved to the other side of the room. The teacher eventually realized it and made it awkward for the kid by standing behind him and going, "So, what you doing?" He got banned from using school computers after that. I like how he can openly masturbate to animal PRN, but get awkward when confronted about it. So if no one talked to him, would he have just finished? My friend watched his sister naked through a hidden window. Source. I joined him. Arkansas or Alabama? I worked in a meat processing business over the summer. Long story short, I walked into the freezer and found an employee having his way with a severed cow's head. I also watched some commit suicide. It was at my high school, Australia. For clarification, he intended to harm all of us. But after a confrontation with a teacher, he shot himself through the head in front of a small group. 11 years later, it is still clear as day in my mind. You never forget that shit. My male cousin trying to FCK a banana. Impaled pregnant lady. On a tree. I was driving home from work and came around a sharp curve to discover an accident that had just occurred. Only one cop car had arrived. A man was driving his pregnant sister to the hospital and didn't make the curve. Their car hit the ditch, flipped, and they were both thrown out. She unfortunately ended up impaled on a tree branch in clear view of any passers-by. Had nightmares for a while and can still see her white sock-covered feet dangling. TLDR. Bad wreck. Car through passengers. Pregnant lady impaled on tree branch. Can't unsee. Attempting to spike a girl's drink at a nightclub. The bouncers reviewed the CCTV and called the cops who took him away. I thought you were initially saying you were the culprit. An extremely obese woman had fallen and required 6 firemen to come and help her get back up. At my school a few weeks back, this rather large woman tripped down the curb and snapped her ankle. Then proceeded to scream call 911. Seeing a guy get knocked out when I was 16. I didn't realize how weird the body reacts. I thought he died. I walked in on my sister getting Eiffel Towered by some dudes. That action isn't necessarily shocking. But the experience was. It being my sister and all. Not me, but my best mate's sister. She used to work in a nursing home. One day was tending to a lady who had her hand in her dressing gown and would not answer to any question or instruction. Friend's sister noticed a horrible smell. Old lady's gown dropped and she had defecated herself and was using the feces as a kind of lube and was rubbing herself out. Nope. That's it. I'm tapping out. Later guys. There's as far as I go in this thread. Edit. FCK. Most upvoted comment of mine ever, and I had spelled this as the. Once I slept in my friend's living room but needed to take a piss. In my drunken haze. I mistook the guest room as the bathroom. I opened the guest room and there was my friend. Wearing nothing but boxers and a motorcycle helmet. Kneeling down with his one arm extended out. Reciting Lion King Circle of Life speech to someone on webcam. I shut the door and acted like nothing happened. Chat roulette. Not even once. I lived in Vegas for years and saw some crazy stuff. I used to ride public transit to my dealing job on the strip. It was just easier. One day, while riding the bus to work, I saw this dirty looking tweaker shove his hand down a boy's, maybe 5, pants, in front of the kid's mother. She started screaming. And the guy was restrained by fellow passengers on the bus. A few stops later, 4 cops boarded the bus, dragged the guy out and planted him face down on the hot pavement. Very roughly. Incidentally, Vegas cops are not to be trifled with. They'll shoot you for sneezing and they'll get away with it. It was a pretty shocking incident. Even for Vegas. I've also seen people openly masturbate on these buses. Shoot up. Puke. Shitty. You name it. I even saw a knife fight take place not 10 feet in front of me. Forget the Vegas floor shows. Ride the buses. I saw some kid setting a wounded bird on fire, alive. Catching my ultra-religious preacher grandfather watching PRN was pretty traumatic. The worst part was that I recognized the site, Pornhub. I might have jerked off to the same thing my grandfather did. The horror. It's genetic. Driving to visit family around Memorial Day weekend. A huge string of bikers were taking up the left-hand lane on the highway. There was probably about 50-60 of them. I'm driving my little Mazda 3 when I see the biker next to me get bumped by his buddy from his left. Suddenly, the scene slowed down into a grotesque domino effect of people being thrown into ditches and onto the road. As I started to pull onto the shoulder, I watched a large biker get thrown off of his bike. He slid face down onto the pavement for quite some time. There was a large growing puddle of blood surrounding his head. I watched as his exposed skin turned ashen grey. We got out of the car, offered blankets, water and first aid supplies to the nearest bikers. Looking around the highway, it seemed as though it was almost apocalyptic with the crumbled bikes and screaming bloody bikers strewn about. To this day, I'm terrified of driving anywhere near a biker. TLDR. Witnessed a huge biker accident on a major highway. A lot of death and destruction. Electrician changing a wire on an adjustable light and his hand jiggling like a slice of ham. Guy shooting heroin on the bus with his kid beside him who was only about 6 years old and full of questions about the whole process. Father was more than happy to explain where the liquid was going. It is important to be an active parent and engage with your children. Seems like good parenting to me. Took my then 4-year-old daughter into the men's room at Barnes & Noble. As I walked in, I saw balloons floating above the handicapped stall. Looking down, you could see camera tripod feet resting on the floor. Naturally, I scooped my daughter up and beelined to the desk to give them the WTF. Their reply? Oh no. Not again. As this was going on, the kid, roughly 18, hustled through the store to the street. When I was in high school, we had to wear shorts as a part of school uniform. There was this one guy who used to show off his dick to girls during lectures. He enjoyed seeing their reactions of disgust. Somehow the teacher never caught him doing this. And the girls never complained about it since it was embarrassing. Edit. I just realized I may have missed some important detail. I am not an American. Grading system is somewhat different here. What I call high school may not be the same as you. We were 14 then. Not insanely shocking. But I was in PHL flying home after Hurricane Irene, 2011, left me stranded for a couple days. I was standing in line at security when this little boy began excitedly exclaiming, "I'm a terrorist." While he giggled, his mother began to panic and hurriedly hushed him, saying, "No, no, no, baby. We tourists. Tourists. That no funny in this country." I was on a Cub camp in the UK. Cubs are the younger version of Scouts, so I was about 8/9. I'm 18 now. I shared a tent with 3 other boys who I knew quite well, and me and one other from our tent were playing football outside until it started to rain, so we decided to go back to the tent. It was at this point we opened the tent to the 2 other boys in our tent licking each other's cocks. Yeah. That was pretty shocking. Nothing was said of this incident between the 4 of us ever again. I quit Cubs after that camp. You should see what happened at Browners. Handicapped kids playing Red Rocket with a stray. A couple shooting heroin in the laundry room of the app building. I walked past them like they weren't even there. Put my clothes in dryer and walked out. I made my HB go out there with me the next time. What the FCK is an HB? My mom searched Google for Google. Me and the cross-country team were going on a run at a public park with an elementary school 200 yards or so away. There was a mowed field behind the school and we were bored, so we decided to run back there. We came across 2 people full out banging in the middle of the field within full view of the school. This was 15 minutes or so after school had dismissed and there were still some students around the school. The woman's child was standing right there asking to go home while the mom was begging her son to not tell dad. TL. One time I went to play my friend's Xbox. All of the boxes for the games were empty. And the discs were all stacked one on top of each other. As they're in the UK, me and a friend were on the daily after work routine of buying energy drinks and chocolate eclairs. When we overhear a child screaming from an aisle down. Me being the inquisitive bugger I am, go to investigate. I come round the corner to see a child laying on his back, shirt over his head, repeatedly screaming Hitler, 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 with his mother trying to make him be quiet. In high school some guy started knocking one out in French lesson. The whole class could see. It wasn't pretty. The same guy then did the same thing in maths a week or so later. He finished up and wiped it on the kid sitting next to him's face. What? On the face. I walked into my room. The PC was in my room. And my mom and her BF were looking at something on the PC. They told me I shouldn't be looking at it as it was their business. Then I heard some familiar music. They were watching Two Girls One Cup. I walked in on my friend in high school trying to FCK her dog. I left immediately but she told me at school the next day that she'd succeeded. Cannot unsee. Flying a plane into the World Trade Center. I was in my 4th grade math class. And we watched from our classroom window the second plane hit. A man taking a sh-tea. In 1st grade I walked in on an elderly man doing his business. And the look in his. I'll never forget. His what? His what? We must know. I once saw someone play the Wii without the safety strap. I literally just walked in my door 10 minutes ago. Knowing my flatmate's male cousin, male, is staying over. His door is closed. Music playing. But I hear a chick's voice. He hears me and comes running and saying him and his cousin are about to double team a chick. Technically. Didn't catch them. But I got home from work at a terrible time and caught them in the act. This is so FK'd up it's incest in a way. Even though it's a MFM 3-way. Although I wouldn't put it past him to have a MMF with his cousin just for PSSY. So as I type this, I can hear a girl moaning. As my best mate and his cousin double team a girl. FCK this. Edit. No, I'm not taking photos of my flatmate and his cousin double teaming a girl. It's okay when it's in a 3-way. It's not gay when it's in a 3-way. Honestly, I don't see how different this is from getting a friend you're not related to have a threesome with you. My friend wanking together with his older brother. Not sure how to process it then. If you ask me now, it would be okay. Ugh. Someone wearing black shoes with brown pants. These comments contain mostly masturbation. I once saw a girl poop. Was there a second girl there? How about a cup? Scraggly dude trying to dispose of a body in an industrial tub in the back of the mixing room. Using acid. Without gloves or goggles. Appalling. My eyes. ZHE goggles do using. At least it wasn't in a bathtub. I was a lifeguard at a pool in a very popular national park. My co-workers and I wanted to take a multi-day camping trip. But couldn't all get off on the same day because the pool was never closed. After some research, we discovered the policy that if someone pooped in the pool it had to be drained and cleaned before reopening. We all argued about who would do the deed. It was in a high traffic area with no place to hide, and no one would step up. I returned the next morning to open the pool and found the hottest girl on staff squatting and spraying into the deep end. I appreciated the days off, but it really killed my mental image of her. It was the day after my parents told me that my dad was moving away and that I had to go with him. I was 10 at the time. So it came a huge shock. I was going to be taken from my home of 10 years and dumped into some city far away. I didn't really know how to deal with that stress at the time. So I ran away. I found this really neat secluded alleyway between two old walls with vines growing all over them. There was a pretty sturdy ledge on one of the walls and my first instinct was to climb to it to get a better view. That's when I started hearing voices from a window nearby. I couldn't really make it out. But they weren't familiar ones. I climbed to investigate. I inched closer and closer to the source of the noise. And, lo and behold, their queen sorcery was naked with her own twin brother. So in my town, we have a local coffee shop that has free Wi-Fi. And, for some reason, iTunes sharing. If you don't know, this means your iTunes library will sync with the LAN so everyone can see it. And I shit you not. I found child pornography on it at one point. I quickly told the manager this. And while I looked for him he locked the door. I found the perpetrator sitting at the back of the store. The pervert. Not mine but my friend's. She was in a changing room in H&M and she popped her head out looking for her friend. The curtain to the changing room opposite was half open and she saw a guy just looking at his boner in the mirror with his trousers and boxers round his ankles. It was even more awkward cause she made eye contact with him in the mirror. Needless to say she ran out of there as fast as she could. My partner and I were walking from the train station at Coney Island, NY to the boardwalk and saw a lady in the distance squatting against a fence. She left and when we approached the spot she squatted at we saw a massive splatter of shit all over the ground. This is normal for New York City. Nothing new here or shocking.